So if you'd like to hear any lore, and I mean any lore whatsoever, go ahead and give a look-see to the Patreon. There's a link in the description below, because even at the $1 tier of the Patreon, your voice is heard when it comes time to choose this week's Fallout lore. 2 options are put up, you vote, I choose, and then we go over the lore together. This week's lore, by way of the Ghoulman Entertainment Patreon, I bring you Dr. 8 from Fallout New Vegas' DLC Old World Blues. Now, Dr. 8 is a character I like because I like audio things. I don't consider myself an audiophile, but I've always been interested in audio. I've always been interested in headphones and microphones and just podcasts and just stuff. So when I hear about a character who's an audio fanatic, acoustician, is what I have written down, and the definition is an expert in a branch of physics concerned with the properties of sound. That's what an acoustician is. He's a pre-war acoustician, a doctor at Big Mountain in 2281. Now, I don't talk about this all the time, but when you go on the Fallout Wiki, where I get all of my lore, fallout.fandom.com, the Wikipedia, if you will, there is a little, I have it drawn here. Let me see if I can show it quick. See it right there? A little face. That's my really bad rendition of what is on the right-hand side on the Fallout Wiki. And it shows you the character's face. If they wear a hat, it gives you the option to show it with or without the hat. If there's 2 different versions of them, like if you look up Madison Lee, it'll show you what she looks like in Fallout 3 versus Fallout 4. And next to Dr. 8, when you go through it, it says his race is Think Tank. And that just made me laugh because I never thought of him as not a human. But technically, he wouldn't be a human. He's a brain of a human in a robot body. So technically, does that change your race? Ghouls technically aren't humans. If I remember correctly, on the wiki, the Fallout Wiki, the Nukipedia, if you will, they're referred to as post-necrotic humanoids. Dr. 8's real name is actually never given in game, and you learn through who he is that he has a bit of an obsession. We're going to talk about that later. He has a bit of an obsession with the number 8. He opted to put his brain in a jar to continue his pursuit of scientific knowledge. This is what turns him into a think tank. Now, what is so cool about the entirety of the think tank is their backgrounds, and Dr. 8 surprisingly has the least amount of background out of any of the think tank scientists. During Father Elijah's visit to the think tank, he reprogrammed his voice module. You can hear about this after you upgrade the sonic emitter, which we'll get into the sonic emitter quest and what have you in just a moment. Now he transmits Robco sound waves static. So when you hear him, he'll just kind of say nonsense in a staticky way. And the subtitles look a bit like when you're trying to hack into a Robco terminal in Fallout 3, New Vegas 4, any of the modern games. I actually have written down, not here, but somewhere in my notes, that he speaks an emoji. The courier can pass a 75 science or a 7 perception check, and he will understand what Dr. 8 is saying. The courier will understand what Dr. 8 is saying, but the subtitles don't change. It's very much like a Scooby-Doo situation, or I kind of think of it as like a Blue's Clues, like, where did he go? That way, that's how I kind of got it. Or it's always bothered me in cartoons growing up. When an animal would talk, and like a squirrel would be like, and then someone would repeat back what they said, that always bothered me, and I don't know why. Like, even as a kid, that bothered me. And that's kind of what the game does. Kind of. So he's involved with 3 big quests in Old World Blues. And that's my biggest problem with Old World Blues, is that it just feels so empty to me. It is a DLC that is based so much more on character interaction than it is with story. It has a lot of world building, but it just feels empty because I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it's a good DLC, but it's not my favorite. Now, the first quest that he's involved with is the main quest called Welcome to the Big Empty, the main quest of Old World Blues, where you're trying to get out. You're trying to find out what's going on with Mobius and Klein and Zero and Dala and the entirety of the think tank. He's part of that main quest line, but he's also part of a quest called On on the same wavelength, exhaust all of his dialogue options, with the 75 science check to threaten him, or the 7 perception to notice he has a vulnerability and to not take advantage of it. So with the 75 science, you notice it, and then you say, I'm going to take advantage of this. You get a couple things out of him, what have you. This will fully upgrade the sonic emitter, this quest line, and get 8 on your side for the end of the game content of the DLC. And also there's Picking Your Brains, which is just the go talk to all the scientists in the think tank. That's really all I have for his background. That's really all I have for his quest. The rest that I have are just notes and fun stuff. Again, that I got off of the Fallout wiki, fallout.fandom.com, the Wikipedia, if you will. Fully upgrading the sonic emitter will please him, as he is an acoustician, and he will give you 100 energy cells. It's implied that he uses the sonic emitter to masturbate? To just jerk it? Not quite sure how. I tried to find out how. I remember Dr. Dala is very much turned on by a human. I remember this DLC being really horny, and that made me really uncomfortable. Even at like 25 when the first time I played it, because it took me a while to get to this one. I don't know. That never always made me off-put. He warms it up, the sonic emitter. And when you're doing the quest line for the sonic emitter, if you're a female, he'll give you microfusion cells, and if male, 2 cans of cram and 2 duct tape. After the quest, on the same wavelength, the courier can ask 8 what he did with the sonic emitter. And I'm going to read a quote at the end of what is said. Like I said, they speak in emoji. They speak in like the terminal you have to decode thing. But some of his dialogue has been written out, has been translated, and I'm gonna read a bit of that for you, a little bit. There's only like 2 things, but that I wrote down that I thought were memorable, but still. Daily, he can give you microfusion cells and tales of chivalry if you're a female, or la fantoma if male. If you coyly inquire about his masturbatory habits, asking him how to pass the time, quote, pass the time, unquote, he will gift you the same thing, the books, once again. If you ask him more literally, he'll give you an egg timer. That's funny. His name is 8, which is an infinity symbol propped upwards. So an 8, kind of like an Ouroboros, a snake eating itself, but I think that's more of a circle. Every robot performs tasks in loops, and their names represent this. 8, Mobius strip. 0 is a complete circle. His personality, belongings, and even his name are all obsessions with the number 8. There was a Jim Carrey movie about this. I think it was called the number 13 or something. I never saw it. His studies as an acoustician is in octaves. There's only 7 octaves on a basic 88 key keyboard or piano, but OCT. He lives in 108 in Higgs Village. He owns 8 coffee cups, 8 clocks, 8 picture frames, 8 dinner sets, 2 flower beds that have 2 rows of 8 flowers in each row, in each bed. He's very much sounds like a character, and I'm not going to sit here and diagnose anybody. I'm not a doctor. I'm with a podcast. He very much seems like a character who has some form of OCD, has some form of an obsession with something. And again, not a doctor. His room in the think tank, so there's the Higgs Village, and then there's his room in the think tank, that has 8 clocks, 8 ham radio speakers, and 8 portable radio handsets. Outside of transmitting static, sometimes he can transmit animal sounds like monkeys and eagles, or even faint speech that seems to be humanoid. Some of the static emoji speech, this is what I have, has been translated. When you ask him who he is, he'll say what looks like it needs to be decoded if you're hacking a terminal, but he'll say, "Who am I? I am Dr. 8, audio engineer of this facility." And the courier can ask him, "How did you fire up the sonic emitter when I arrived again?" And this is literally what is written down that has been translated, again, off the Fallout Wiki, the Wikipedia, if you will. A little embarrassed about this, but yes, I creamed hard into your gun. That man creamed hard into my gun. The think tank is an entirely different kind of way of thinking. It's a way of thinking that I don't think anybody I know, any writer that I've ever met, would have thought of something like this. They also appear in Van Buren, but Van Buren doesn't technically exist and isn't technically canon in any sort of capacity, but they did originate from there. It's everything I have on Dr. 8 from Fallout New Vegas's Old World Blues DLC, and I hope you enjoyed, because that is this week's lore. Hey everybody, wasn't that great? Didn't you enjoy that? A little bit of Fallout lore to start your day? Maybe midday Fallout lore? Hell, right before bedtime? Doesn't get any better than this. If you like this, check out the Patreon. There's a link in the description below. If you want to have your voice heard, if you want me to do a certain piece of lore, the best way to get in contact with me is through the Patreon. The people who are on screen right now, I gotta thank them. Thank you to these fine folks right now. Because of them, the show can continue to grow and get bigger and better. And if you want to check it out, from the $1 tier to the $10 tier, your voice is heard every single week. I filmed the full Atomic Radio Hour podcast episodes live in our Discord. Hey, you know what? While you're here, check out the Discord. There should be a link in the description below. Check out my Twitter. Check out the show's Twitter. Come hang out. It's a good time. My name has been Vince. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you to the Patreon. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.